Welcome to Dental Wife Life. Whether you're married to a dental student or a dentist, navigating the unique challenges of a dental family can feel lonely. You're not alone, and this podcast is a space created just for you. Here we share real stories, honest conversations, and practical tools to help you navigate everything from dental school stress to practice ownership, family transitions, and finding your own identity along the way. We are here to validate your sacrifices, challenge outdated roles, strengthen marriages and practices, and build a community of women who support each other. We'll get out of survival mode and learn to thrive together. Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. Today, I wanted to talk about something that has been really important to me as a business owner, a mom of 5, and someone who helps run multiple businesses with my husband. And that's, how do you build a successful practice while respecting your team's personal life in the process? Because here's what I've learned. You can have incredible systems, you can have amazing production, and you can grow quickly. But if your team is burned out, missing their kids' lives, constantly stressed, emotionally exhausted, or feel like they can never catch up, eventually the culture cracks. We all know in healthcare, especially dentistry, burnout gets normalized. It becomes, that's just how it is. Everyone's stressed. This is what success looks like. But I refuse to let it be that way for me or for my team. I'm definitely not talking about lowering standards. I still believe in accountability. I believe in professionalism. And I honestly have really high expectations for my team. But I also believe that our team members are humans first. A lot of them are moms, dads, husbands, wives, siblings, sons, daughters, their friends, and many of them are overwhelmed. And frankly, people perform better when they feel supported instead of constantly drowning. So today I want to share some practical things that we've done in our businesses and kind of a mindset shift that we've had to try to create a more family-friendly practice while growing the business. And I'm not talking about the atmosphere being family-friendly for our patients, but how our office culture is family-friendly for our employees, how our office culture helps support our employees and their families. So why does this matter more than ever? And I think the biggest shifts happening right now is that people are reevaluating what they want from work. They're not just there for a paycheck anymore. They want flexibility, they want respect, emotional safety, work-life balance, and they want to feel like their life outside of work actually matters. Which this is all really valid, right? So, especially after COVID, I feel like there was a shift and people realized my family matters, my mental health matters, and my time matters. And if practices don't adapt to this reality, then we're going to struggle with retention, morale, hiring, and the most important one to me is the culture. Because the old model of work yourself to death and be grateful that you have a job, be grateful you're getting a paycheck, that just doesn't work anymore. And personally, as a mom, I totally get it. There have been seasons when I have felt pulled in 100 different directions as a business owner, wife, mom, employee, manager, chauffeur, laundry lady, snack distributor, therapist, referee, all of the things at the same time. And so now family friendly does not mean chaotic. I want to clarify this because I think when people hear family friendly workplace, they think no rules, no accountability, everyone just does what they want, but absolutely not. This is not what I'm talking about. In fact, I think family friendly practices require stronger systems because flexibility without structure just becomes really chaotic, and chaos burns everyone out. That's not what we're trying to do here. So, for us, being family friendly means that we have clear expectations, we have consistency, communication, systems, and grace. Grace and accountability, believe it or not, can coexist. And that's something that I say all the time. You can care deeply about your team and still expect excellence. Those things are not opposites. So, here are a couple ways that I have tried to practically support our team's health. So, first is building schedules that respect real life. One thing that we've tried to be really intentional about is understanding that our team has lives outside of the office. There's things like school pickup, daycare hours, sports, doctor's appointments, just the mental load from their family responsibilities. And sometimes tiny changes can make a huge difference. Just recently, I found for myself personally, we close at 5 and On days when I was able to get home at 4, it made a huge difference in our family life. That 1 hour felt like 3 hours. Like, dinner went so much smoother, our evening routine, the after school activities. The evenings when I could get home at 4 felt so much smoother, and it was a really big eye opener for me. And I thought, honestly, I didn't really care that my husband was still getting home at 5, but all of my team members are women. And as a mom, if I am getting off at 4 and I notice a difference, I knew that them getting off at 4 would make a big difference in their family life as well. So we talked together as a team and we decided to shift some things around with our lunch. And we decided to start closing at 4. And so things like that, like just looking at your schedule. So we just barely changed from 5 to 4. I mean, in the dental field, if you want to make a change, you got to make it 6 months in advance. So we started kind of progressing towards this change probably about 5 months ago. And then we will officially start closing at 4 at the end of this month. So the end is in sight. But one thing that we changed last year was our first patient was at 8:30 instead of 7:30. One of the problems we were having was we had our morning huddle at 7:10, our first patient at 7:30, and then a lot of my team members had to go and take their kids to daycare, go pick them up from home and go take them to school, or they're trying to coordinate rides with family members, and it was just a lot. I could just see how much it was for them to juggle, and we had the schedule set up in a way so that I came in after all of that, and I just saw how much it was for them to try to juggle without that flexibility. And so we decided to open at 8:30 instead. And so now our morning huddle is at 8:10 and our first patient is at 8:30. So that gives everyone plenty of time to drop their kids off and still get into work. And that shift for our family was huge. And I know that it was huge for our team members. Maybe you're alternating late days, maybe you're creating more predictable schedules, things like time blocks or block schedules so that we're not scheduling emergencies at 4:30 in the afternoon. And then avoiding unnecessary meetings before work. We try to be really intentional about our time and then definitely respecting lunch breaks. I think a lot of burnout comes from employees feeling like work consumes every ounce of energy that we have. And a lot of times we give the most to work and then our family and ourselves, we get kind of the leftovers. But when you're constantly running on empty, eventually you stop caring. And it's not because team members are lazy, but it's honestly just because they're depleted. I think also in the dental field, we need to stop glorifying burnout, especially as women. I hear this all the time like, oh man, yeah, I just skipped lunch today. I haven't peed all day. I stayed 2 hours late to do my charting. I'm just so exhausted. And somehow that gets celebrated almost like it's a competition, right? Like who's the most tired? And long term, it's just not sustainable. And so we end up making more mistakes. Our communication's worse. Maybe we have lower tolerance for stress. Maybe we become resentful and we lose that compassion, start keeping score. One of the things that I have been working on personally is asking, how do I create efficiency instead of that like martyrdom that we often, I think, experience as women? Because there is a difference. So, one of those things that I have found in the dental office is cross training my team members. So, one thing that's unique to dentistry, I feel like, is just that a lot of times you have these small teams and everyone has their jobs. But what happens when someone's gone? What are your protocols? What do you have in place for when somebody's gone? And because when it comes down to it, I, a few years ago, was kind of auditing our PTO and our schedule. And I found that it was something like 30% of the days we actually had everyone there. And that's crazy to think about. And it's just the reality of it. And we have a fairly large team. We've kind of fluctuated between maybe 15 to 19 team members. And so that might be different if you have a smaller team. Maybe it's a little bit more predictable than that. But one thing that has really helped is cross training. And then I have talked about this in other podcasts, but we are pretty much one person overstaffed. That's how I like to keep it. We have our like floater that is going to be able to help in different positions. And that's part of my role as well, is to help bridge that gap sometimes when we're missing people. But cross training helps create flexibility, it helps create support in positions, and then it just puts less pressure on individuals. It helps for the employees to actually be able to take time off without feeling guilty or feeling like, like my insurance specialist, that if she takes the week off, are claims still getting sent, or is she going to come back and not only have to send claims from that day, but she's going to have an entire week's worth of claims? That could be like, I don't even know, two to 300 claims that she's having to go through just to get caught up. And so having these things put in place that our machine still goes when somebody's gone, it's still working. If somebody does take the day off or they're sick, but they're feeling anxious the whole time and they're worried about what it's going to be like when they get back, that's really not real rest. And that can lead to burnout. I think it's also important to normalize asking for help. As women, especially moms, we like to do it all and we feel like we're failing if we're not doing everything. I feel like that becomes a little bit of part of our identity and part of our like self-worth. But it's really important to keep in mind that nobody is meant to do everything alone at work or at home, right? So I try to normalize asking questions, needing support, delegating, communicating before you get overwhelmed. Communicate before the crisis. That is my mantra for this year, because resentment grows when we are silent, right? Like when we're just harboring these feelings, have that chip on your shoulder, and that's when the resentment builds. An important part of this is the culture that we have in our office. I am so passionate about office culture because it's not just about being productive and producing the numbers, but it's about the environment that we create. And I have found the stronger our office culture, the more productive the team is. It's so important. But one thing is respect. The things like not gossiping and not being nitpicky and not assuming the worst about people. And this is something that we coach on repeatedly in our office, because stressful environments, people start to focus on what everybody else is doing wrong, right? I know for me, when I'm feeling stressed, I like to find somebody to blame. That's just like what my mind does. The story that I'm telling myself, I'm like, oh, if I wouldn't be so stressed if so and so was better at their job, or if so and so was faster, or if my husband could do more laundry, whatever it is. I like to kind of find that person to focus on. And then you start to build resentment when really the reality is it's just you're stressed, right? So it's just something that we have to constantly check ourselves and coach our team on. Another one is appreciation. People want to feel seen, and appreciation doesn't always have to be expensive. Sometimes it's just like a verbal recognition saying thank you, recognizing when people go out of their ways to do things, and then maybe flexibility. So something that I really appreciate with my team is when I have to bring my kids into the office, they're really flexible with me and very understanding. And I try to show them that same courtesy, remembering important events and checking in with people, and then just noticing effort. I think when people feel seen, they feel valued. Another one is that psychological safety in the office. We all make mistakes and people can admit to their mistakes. They can ask questions, they can communicate concerns without fear or humiliation. Because if they can't, then your culture becomes fear based. The teams that are working in this fear tend to hide problems instead of solving them. So that's definitely not something that we want on our team. Now, all of these things as a business owner, this is hard, right? This is hard from our side because sometimes people online can make business owners sound evil for expecting accountability. I know that I've definitely felt that. But the reality is that as owners, we carry enormous pressure of our own. We're keeping payroll running, we're managing the overhead, we're trying to grow a business, we're supporting our patients, handling the staffing, the hiring, we're solving problems, and just trying to protect the future of the practice, which is going to benefit everyone, right? But there are definitely moments where I know that we have felt torn between what's best for the business, what's best for the people. Something that helps us personally is I feel like my husband very much has that like entrepreneur mindset and can focus. He tends to lean more towards the business. And I have more of the like HR mindset and I lean more towards the people, the team, the patients. And so being able to communicate together, sometimes it's like this great debate of finding that compromise, finding what is truly going to be best for the situation. So if that's you and your spouse, sometimes it would just be easier. I'm like, oh, I just wish you could see things my way. But I have found over the years that there's room for both of our strengths and that it's necessary for our success. And I think has contributed to a lot of our success. So if that's not you, if you find that maybe both you and your husband are more business driven, find the people that can help advocate for the people, because bringing in those two different viewpoints is just so helpful, and just having that reality check, right? Those things can oftentimes, feel like a conflict. I think the goal is to lead with humanity while still protecting the standards. It's not perfection. We're just intentionally leading the team. Now, what does this look like at home? Because running a business and raising kids has really changed the way that I lead. When you become a parent, you realize that everybody's carrying something. Maybe somebody didn't sleep great last night or hasn't slept great in months. Maybe they have a struggling child. Maybe they're caring for aging parents. They're dealing with marriage stress, financial pressure, infertility, postpartum issues, anxiety, and you just never really know. And I think that my own life experiences have just helped me become more compassionate and to be a better leader, not a weaker one. It's about just creating that environment where people can succeed. So find ways to save yourself time, find ways to simplify your life, because your time and your mental energy matter too. And if you can save time and energy there, you have more to give for yourself. And then I think another thing is when I look at my life and the categories, I have like work, home, and family, and then I have myself, my self care, my own needs. And I start to get burned out when I am trying to give 100% to each one of those categories. And while I would love to be able to give 100% to each of those categories, it's just really not realistic. And so maybe sometimes work gets 80% of me, and maybe home life gets 60%, and self care, maybe I'm in a season where I get 40%. Now, I will say, when it comes to taking care of myself, if I can give myself more, then I find that I have more to give to home and work. So if you're looking for things to cut out, I would really recommend that it not be sleep. I have done that before where I'm like, how little of sleep can I get? And that did not last long, and honestly just wasn't great. So take my advice, that is not sustainable. But when I take care of myself, when I am exercising, eating right, I'm not skipping meals, I am prioritizing my sleep, drinking enough water, taking my supplements, whatever it is, whatever that looks like for you, if you can really focus on yourself and your mental health, then I find that I have so much more to give to my family and to work. And not just so much more to give, happily giving, right? It's not just stripping it from me, but I just have so much more to offer. But balance isn't about perfection. I feel like it's about adjusting and being able to switch gears and flexibility. So at the end of the day, I think our best practices and the best businesses in general are the ones that understand this concept, that when people feel they're respected, they're supported, they're appreciated, they're valued as humans, and they're not just machines, then these people, they're more loyal, they're more invested, and just healthier overall. And who doesn't want that for their teams? You can still build a productive practice, a profitable business, and a strong culture without sacrificing every ounce of your well-being and your team's well-being. And honestly, I think that's the future of leadership, is moving away from this fear base and just more of that compassion. We're still accountable. We still have high expectations, and we're still professional, but we are human. And I think that that's really important. So if you're listening to this, whether you're a business owner, you're the office manager, you're a spouse in the practice, or a team member, I just want to encourage you to think about, what type of workplace are you trying to create? Because culture is built on the small things, the way that we show up every single day. But thank you guys so much for listening. If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone in dentistry or business who you think might need to hear it. And I hope to see you on the next episode.
Thank you for spending this time with us on Dental Wife Life. If today's episode encouraged you, challenged you, or made you feel a little less alone, share it with another dental wife who needs it. Make sure you subscribe, leave a review, and connect with us on social media so that we can keep the conversation going. You can find us on Instagram at The Dental Wife Life. Remember, your role matters, your voice matters, and you don't have to navigate this journey alone. We'll see you next time.